Hi, this is Barb. If you're unable to find me on Voice America in the future, please do come and find me on all major podcast platforms on Spotify, Apple, Google, all of them. I'm here. I haven't left you, so come on over to find me. I'll be looking for you. You can also, of course, come to my website, aviewthroughtheveil.com. I hope to see you soon. And don't forget to rate, review, comment, subscribe, if I have the subscriber button up by then. Thanks for your support, guys. I love talking to all of you. Today we have Nick Lasky back on the show to give us an astrological look at what is coming for us in 2025. We are in for quite a ride, and Nick is going to help warn and guide us. Even though he has been on before, I want to remind you about him. Nick is a renowned metaphysical teacher specializing in astrology, tarot divination, meditation, and sacred ceremonies. He has a unique blend of ancient wisdom with modern interpretations, unveiling the profound connection between the celestial and terrestrial realms. He is the founder of the Society of Awakening Souls and co-founder of the Cacao Men's Circle. I'm so happy to have you back on the show, Nick.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. It's very good to be back.
I'm so glad to have you back, and especially in our hour of need here. This is November, what's today? 22nd, 21st, 2024, where the world has emotionally exploded.
Yeah.
And let's hope no
Something
other
like
way,
that.
just that way.
We are in the birth canal.
Oh my God. Or are we anywhere near, delivery or?
We're pushing. She's pushing.
I can feel the contractions, the pain. I can feel the pain.
Yeah, it's like that. The contractions are getting closer and closer together.
Oh my God, yeah. So tell me, what are these contractions and how long? And is it a boy or a girl? Well, we already know it's a boy.
Yeah, it's a boy.
Yeah,
Turns out it's a boy.
I know.
The ultrasound was a little sketchy in terms of figuring that out. But I actually like this metaphor of contractions and birth for what we are unfolding into in connection with the cosmos. Because being an astrologer, I like to look at things at the macro level. And, so once we saw the election results, I was like, okay, well, clearly this has to be showing up in the sky somewhere in the cosmos. And my immediate reflection or insight was something that I think we spoke about the last time we talked, which is about the United States' Pluto return. So if we just zoom in on the United States of America, there is a 250-year cycle that most humans don't get to because we don't live that long, but countries can get to. Yeah. And that is the planet Pluto returning back to the same place in the zodiac as it was when the country was founded. So if you look back to July 4th, 1776, as the beginning of this country, then you will find that the planet Pluto was in late Capricorn. So over the past several years, the United States of America has been having its Pluto return. All right. And many folks have probably heard of the Saturn return or even the solar return or on your birthday.
I've heard Saturn return. And I've learned to avoid it. Not avoid it. I can't avoid it, but I want to avoid it. I know. I've learned this is not good. And when you hear that, these are not good words.
Yeah. Well, so it goes like this. So Pluto is the planet of the underworld. It is the transformational process of death and rebirth. And it requires going to the underworld. It requires facing the shadow. It requires facing the fear and self-confrontation. Pluto it's also where we get the, term plutocracy, right? The power by, rule by those in power. Like a select few very wealthy people, maybe, kind of like an oligarchy. So Pluto is this archetype of, you can think of a volcano,
Mhm.
that can be huge pressure building underneath that eventually just explodes.
Yeah.
But it's also that magma, that lava that can just transmute anything. Anything you throw at it, it will totally melt it and just return it back into pure earth substance,
Mm.
right? So when it comes to countries, when we have this Pluto return, and I did a whole lecture actually with John Oliver about Pluto returns, and we researched other countries that have had Pluto returns to
Yeah.
see, okay, well, what happened when Spain or when England or China or Italy?
Hmm.
So typically what we noticed was there's a major restructuring of the country. It's a major reckoning with or self-confrontation that the country has to deal with. So if you look at the past couple Pluto returns of England or Great Britain, then almost every time to the money, there was a major restructuring. Like one was the time, I think the most recent, when it became Great Britain and there was a consolidation. A couple times ago, there was a splitting with Northern Ireland.
Hmm.
And then I think even before that, there was, oh gosh, one of these, famous Saxon, maybe William the Conqueror, I think actually. And there
Yeah.
was like this new dividing line of England and territory. And so that with the other countries, what
Hmm.
we really have expected as astrologers is like, oh, there's a fundamental kind of reshaping and come to Jesus time that the United States it needs to have. It's like doing the shadow work necessary and reforming, going through the death and
Right.
rebirth process. From my perspective, right?
Hmm.
We haven't done that yet. Since the pandemic, there's been, 2020, look back at these huge movements, Black Lives Matter, and so much of what's happening socially with the economics with the
Right.
financial markets. Like we've had a whole bunch of turbulence and shifts and compressions, but I would not personally say that we've gone through a Pluto return fully,
Mm.
right?
So it's still in front of us, this Pluto return, or
It's
we're in
from
it?
Yeah, we're in it from an
Yeah.
exact astrological perspective. It's past now. Just 2 days ago,
Uh-huh.
Pluto entered into Aquarius, where Pluto will stay for the next 18 years.
18 years. Oh my God.
Which
That's
is
a
ushering
long birth
in.
canal.
Well, that's not, I don't think that's how long we're in this Pluto return.
Yeah.
That's more like this big generational shift and huge explosion, AI, science, medicine, technology, like this renaissance in those areas. It just happens, the shift happens to coincide with the USA's Pluto return because it's
Yeah.
so late in the sign of Capricorn. But
Have we had a Pluto return in the last 250 years, or is this the first one?
first time. This is number
Uh,
one.
yeah.
The US is about to turn 250,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
2026.
But the things that you said about England,
Hmm.
England didn't do well with any of them, did they?
I mean, here's the perspective that I want to give about this. There's a short term and there's a long term,
Hmm.
right? In the short term, there's a bit of chaos.
A
You know,
bit. Yeah.
there's war
Mm.
there, and not universally with these Pluto returns, but there's power struggles. Pluto is power. So
Uh,
there's a power struggle.
yeah.
There's like this fight, this power struggle for the soul, let's say, of this country
Hmm.
and what we're doing here and what we stand for and who we are and what are the foundations of this, like all of that, right? And both, if we just look at two sides, which I don't really believe in just two sides,
Hmm.
but the two predominant sides, let's say here in this country, essentially believe that they're fighting for the same thing, which is the foundations of this, like what are
Right,
our
right.
foundations?
But one wants to rip everything apart and go back to a time that basically we used horses and women didn't have a vote. You know? And then the other side is trying to go forward. Now that's my belief, maybe, but I mean, they're coming up with the 1862 year,
Yeah.
so.
Yeah, I mean, um, I believe that this is such a, this is a part of the fundamental divide that's happened in this country,
Mhm,
which is also part of our founding, right? If you look at the beginning of this country, we had the same ideological split, which was this group of founders that wanted to build or create a country that was completely separate from religion,
mhm,
right? Which was completely a new thing at the time.
right.
Like countries didn't do that. That wasn't a thing,
Yeah,
And then this experiment happened where this country, is we, have the separation of church and state, Thomas Jefferson, all of that stuff came about. But even at the, the founding of it, right? There was an intention to create it without this national religion. But then you
yeah.
had the other half of the people creating the country that were very Christian, very religious, very
Mhm,
wanting to infuse those values and ideals into this country.
yeah,
And so we're facing, it's a huge clash, let's say, of the same ideological opposition. Like it's just a major recircling back to the same thing, which was there at our founding.
mhm. Now, have we already lost or won this one, depending on which side you're on?
No,
Is it a done
no,
deal or, you know?
I don't believe so. I certainly don't believe so. Um, right now, so if you look at the Pluto and you look at the process of death and rebirth,
Mhm.
right? We have not fully come out in the rebirth phase,
Yeah.
right? We're still a little bit in the dying phase,
That
or
that
the
I
or the
believe, yeah.
the in between, right? The in between Bardo kind of journey, and so one loss, I don't think that is the right way to think about where we are right now. Like it's this kind of crucible. We're in the cauldron right
Hmm.
now. Like, what is it going to be? What's going to come out? There's going to be lots of fighting and different opinions and perspectives, and it's not fully formed yet. So in the short term, many people are extremely disappointed, but many
Yeah.
people are extremely happy. Well, that creates pressure.
Right.
And eventually, that's going to create something new.
But it almost feels like the ones that are very disappointed have already walked away from the table. They've already figured that it's lost. It's done. We lost, it's lost. And
Yeah,
have
yeah,
already gone very quiet. I don't really see any fight. It's almost like where can you fight? It's all four form parts of the government are gone. You know, um, all three, it's supposed to be three parts. I put the Senate and the Congress as independent. I have my own view.
yeah.
But,
And I know where you're
all
coming from.
parts are done, which gives, it's almost like the one side has lost all weapons, all way of fighting back.
Hmm. So I totally hear what you're saying, and there is a total major tipping in power by the one party in all these branches of government. However, and of course, I think there's from the other side, there's the perspective of, oh, we've lost, like, and a bit of still just kind of in shock and like, what's going to happen? What are we going to do? All of
Mhm.
that, right? That's
Yeah.
not going to last forever. Like once laws start taking place, once things start really ramping up, you're going to see the opposition coming in very strongly again, I do believe. But
But do they
if we
have any
come,
power?
yes, because if we come back to the founding of this country,
Mhm.
all of those branches of government are meant to serve who? The people, right?
Mm.
Ultimately, it's the people who have the power. And it's, we have a president, we have the legislative bodies, we have the judicial branch. but all of them are meant to serve the people. Now, the judicial branch, they're not so much serving the people. They're in their own kind of state already.
Right.
But I do very much believe that the people, we as a collective nation and as citizens, have so much more power than we realize. And I think part of the way that the system and the structure is set up disempowers people. And this is one of the things I've been preaching of late with the people that are really upset or people that are elated about the results of the election,
Mm-hmm.
which is, do not put all of your power into some external savior. Whoever wins, whether you're happy about it or devastated, right? If you think, oh, X is going to win and therefore everything is going to be fine, or if you think Y wins and therefore everything is doomed, right?
Right.
That's a total giving up of your power as a person, as a being, and as a citizen, right?
I'm
So
not.
I
Let me ask you this: do you think there'll be a vote in 2 years? Do you think
in 2 years, like the midterms,
there, or any time in the future? Yeah.
I believe there
Do the
will. I
stars
mean,
say that the citizenship will actually have a vote? I guess.
listen, I think if we get to that point, it the people are definitely going to have it'll be a whole nother situation where the
Mm.
people are definitely going to revolt. This brings me to a second astrological thing that I
Oh,
really,
good.
really want
Oh,
to
good.
acknowledge.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's put our things here in compartments, right?
Yeah.
We get the Pluto return of the United States. That's the rebirth, the major restructuring of the foundation. All right.
And I'm going to ask you before we go to the second thing. In
Uh-huh.
the when you and John Oliver took a look at other countries, like you looked at Great Britain, but did
Mhm.
you look at other countries and what happened to them?
Yes, great question. We kind of split it up with different countries. I also looked at Spain.
Hmm.
And I did notice that in one of the times with Spain, there was a major assassination during the Pluto return, which shifted the kind of ruling family or monarchy, or like it tipped things in a new direction in terms
Hmm.
of where the country was going in its leadership. Um, and so I can't remember the specifics, so I don't want to get it wrong with
Yeah.
Spain, but the last couple Pluto returns, I know that like the government shifted in terms
Hmm.
of the way it was being either structured, run, or who was in charge.
Yeah. And that's what I'm worried about, actually, that we have just shifted almost to a king, almost away from president into a king, especially
Hmm.
with immunity.
Yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
And I think it's up to the people ultimately to ensure that that doesn't happen.
So it didn't already happen.
No, I don't think so.
Yeah.
I mean, this is certainly probably gonna, test uh, this country in ways that we haven't been tested before ever, right?
Hmm.
But I don't think that's already a fated path. I don't believe that at all.
Okay. With astrology, is astrology a fated path? So if I'm born at a certain day and time and place, am
Uh-huh.
I already fated? Have a
Yeah.
fated
So
path?
this is an amazing discussion, the fate versus free will,
Mhm.
and I would say no first, with a slight little undertone of yes. Now, what do I mean by that? Yes, we do have free will. Absolutely. I don't believe in like your path is fated in terms of how it's all going to play out, and we're just in a simulation, and it's all just like we're just following along with what it's going to be, right? However, what is fated, and it just depends on how you define fate, right? Is the archetypal journey,
Mhm.
which you see in the birth chart, you see in astrology, you see that how it's going to play out. I could look at someone's chart that was just born. I was just at a birth on Friday, like witnessed a friend giving birth, and it was the wildest thing. So we're talking about birth canals, and it's interesting.
Right. So they're pretty
But
prominent in your consciousness right
it's
now.
alive. It's alive right
Yeah,
now.
yeah, yeah.
But I could look at the baby's name is Castalia, okay, which is
Hmm.
the sacred spring in Delphi. I could look at Castalia's chart and say, wow, I could see the whole life, and I could look at decades, 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 and see what the journey is going to be like for this being, this soul.
Hmm.
However,
Were you
so
yelling, go back in, get back in?
she was really trying to stay in there. She was
Yeah,
she was not trying to come here so
yeah.
easily, but she did. But the point is that it's an archetypal journey. These are bigger archetypes that are expressed in your chart and
Hmm.
as the astrology unfolds. So, how you express that is very different than like a good way to think about it is, let's say, just to keep it very broad and simple, you need a job. Like,
Hmm.
I'm going to let you know that in the next, year, you need a new job, right?
Hmm.
That's what astrology says. That's your fate.
Right.
Okay, well, what job you get, totally up to you. You know what I
Oh,
mean?
okay.
You could be a cut hair, you could host a podcast, you could become the president, you could, become a professional soccer like
But don't you have talents one way or another? You're an accountant or you're an author, and rarely are you both.
yeah. Yeah, so here's another thing. This is where my personal belief comes in regards to karma.
Hmm.
And karma is a word that a lot of people get hung up on, and I know it's, in the caste system in India, it's like a whole different thing than what a lot of
Yeah.
Westerners refer to with karma. But let's say you have two people born with the exact same chart, right? And they were born in New York City. One was born by a homeless woman right out on the street, and
Hmm.
the other was born in a, Upper West Side, fabulously wealthy hospital, like to a billionaire family. Okay,
Yeah. Yeah.
but they're born same block, same exact time.
Hmm.
What's different? How are those lives going to be totally different? Well, that's where the history, the soul's history, karma, who are the parents, the opportunities that that child will then get to experience or attract. And that's where karma comes in. And so you can have the exact same chart, and therefore the same archetypes will be manifest,
Hmm.
right? If you understand what I mean by archetypes, the same kind of similar patterns, but how they are expressed can be completely different.
So they can both be brilliant, but one can have opportunity in school and the other one doesn't have that opportunity.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, that
You know?
sucks. I know.
Yeah, this makes me think of Dolly Parton
Hmm.
because I forget there was
This
some
is a
very
stretch.
famous.
I'm going though.
Hey, come along for the ride.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, there was some famous. I think it was actually a composer who said that because Dolly Parton's history, she grew up, in a log cabin,
Hmm.
and with like 10 other siblings, basically
Right.
dirt poor, not really any education formally.
Hmm.
She went to school, but then she had to help out and all these kinds of things. And this famous composer said if Dolly Parton had gone to like an academy or university and like had all these opportunities, she would express her genius in unimaginable ways right now. But she's a
Yeah.
genius. Like, make no mistakes, Dolly Parton is a genius. She's a business
Yeah.
genius. She's a marketing genius. She's expressing herself musically in amazing ways.
Hmm.
But if she was given different opportunities, that would just manifest in other realms.
Yeah. I see what you mean. Yeah. As long as it expresses, that's the thing. Yeah.
And this is also something that comes back to, this is part of the work that I like to do with clients one-on-one, and why what the reason I got so sucked into astrology myself is we may not be living our destiny with our chart. We may not be our purest, highest expressing that version of ourselves because of conditioning, because some teacher at school yelled at you and told you you're no good at this, or
Hmm.
stop raising your hand, or whatever, right? Or that's not going to make you money if you focus on the saxophone. And
Right.
so we can get away from our nature in life. And I believe the beauty of astrology is, and a really good astrologer is having the ability to
You
see,
know what? We
well,
just
what is
garbled.
our natural blueprint?
Hold on just a sec. We just garbled. And I'm going to turn off my myself. Is that okay? And maybe that won't pull as much
Yeah, I can hear you.
on the, yeah, maybe that'll ease up our internet connection. But is it okay? Because you're not looking at me now, right? Can you see
No, I
me?
can still see you, actually.
Oh, yeah, I
I can
can.
see you.
Well, geez. So I turned it off on this side. Oh, I never knew that. Oh, okay. I'm thinking, well, that'll help, that. But oh, anyway, we'll go ahead. But what were we saying? What were
Well,
we?
just in regards to astrology being a tool to help you understand your divine blueprint,
Hmm.
right? And I do believe that we can get disconnected from that. And that's why so many people can be, feel lonely, not on the right path, all this stuff. Like we get disconnected from our true nature and
Yeah.
our true gifts. And so it's part of the spiritual journey, the healing journey, to reconnect with that.
Hmm.
And so, so yeah, it can be a tool to help you understand your true nature as well.
Okay. So it's not just part of your personality pushing you a certain way. You can resist that.
You can resist it, or the way that I like to think about it is you can manifest the lower qualities,
Mm.
the one end of the, like, okay, so let's take the moon is in Leo, I believe, right now. Okay, so let's just take the sign of Leo, right?
Hmm.
In its highest manifestation, Leo is creative, is expressive, is, life of the party kind of vibe, very, talented and charismatic, and full of light, bringing light, right? But its shadow is so concerned and so deeply afraid of rejection
Hmm.
and judgment from others that it closes itself off,
Oh, okay.
right? That is
Become
so
shy.
self-conscious.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's how it can also manifest. Like there's the polarity of it,
Hmm.
and you can either be like expressing it in a clean, healthy way, or maybe in a denser, unconscious way.
Okay. Okay. Now back to the US. I brought you off of that saying, are we destined? So are
No,
we?
we are, we have a lot more power than we realize, I believe, as a collective. And that comes down ultimately to individuals. But if you look at the history of the world, you see that history generally is made by some very courageous individuals.
Right. I'm not seeing them out there. I don't know them. Let me put it this way. I don't
I
know them.
don't.
People I know
Well,
were all cowards and untalented too. That's the worst part. Because I think in a way it might be IT, might be the technology is really the weapon. It's not,
mhm,
I don't know
AI.
if it's the people. It's
Mm.
it's you know.
Well, and this comes back to one of the things I was started to allude to, which is, much of this I think is by design,
Hmm.
to dumb down the public, the population, to not be so creative. Part of our public education system is squeezing people into the same kind of box,
But
which does castrate your unique, creative, playful
hmm.
expression, and
Yeah,
so
yeah.
I think the part of it, like the movie The Matrix,
Hmm.
that's real. That's life. It's not the
Yeah.
exact same way. I don't think we're all being harvested in some little, pod. Um,
However, yeah. You were
right.
saying something about there's another astrological element that's coming up on the United States.
Yeah, and we're actually totally in it right now. So we know that individuals, us humans, have birth charts, right? And again, so do countries.
Yeah.
So if you look at the birth chart of the United States of America, July 4th, 1776, and many people believe that we are Sagittarius rising. There's some discrepancy over the birth time of the US, but a lot of people
Hmm.
use what's called Sibley chart, and I like to use that one. But so the United States is actually a Cancer,
Hmm.
okay, with an Aquarius moon. All right. And so the moon, of course, representing the emotions, the feelings, the kind of mood of the collective people. And in Aquarius, there's a lot of idealism. There's a lot of wanting for a kind of innovation and progress and moving things forward, right? So there's a pulse of that in the country, doing things
Hmm.
our way and a bit rebellious.
Yeah.
Now, the planet Uranus is activating our moon as a country right now. Uranus is the archetype of rebellion, breaking free from the status quo. It is the pop. It's a lightning strike that suddenly shifts things. It's like a revolution or maybe a riot. It's that archetypal energy that's like things gotta change. We're doing it now. We're doing it fast. Boom. Right. But it creates with Uranus in the sky, dynamically activating the moon in the United States' chart. It is created over the past, this year, especially 2024, a tremendous urge in the collective psyche and the collective mood for something new, for
Hmm.
some new freedom, for some liberation. Because I think ultimately what a lot of people wanted is something different.
Hmm.
Right? They just want to change. It's not, things aren't working well for them economically, right? So let's do something new. Let's do something different. So there's this currently, and really for the next quite a few months, Uranus is this change making rebellious energy.
Hmm.
And so that's part of this dynamic right now. There is just this urge for breaking free from the status quo.
Yeah. Until they find out what that is. You said it's for a few months, as if there'll be an end to this or a change.
Well, yeah, it's just so hot right now.
Hmm.
And, I also like to think, I'm just looking exactly in the chart right now to see it really will peak again
Hmm.
coming in the spring of 2025. And then by the time we get into the summer of 2025, it kind of calms down. But then it'll be back again in the winter. So 2026 winter, and that'll be our last go around. And then by the time it is late spring of 2026, that dynamic has passed. But, I really like to think of this country not as a country.
Hmm.
It's a funny thing. But the country that we are in, the United States of America, in my estimation, because we're talking about this, it's much more like Europe, which is a continent of many different countries.
Yeah.
We're really like that. Like there you go to Alabama, you go to California, you go to
New Jersey.
Virginia, you go to Minnesota, like they're
Yeah.
completely different worlds. There's
Yeah.
they all got the CVS and the Chipotle and the Sleep Number mattress store.
Yeah.
Well, big box stores, right? But I
Yeah.
mean, culturally, it's very different.
Yeah.
It's so really we're a continent.
Hmm. Yeah. And what does that mean for us, though? So we're
Well,
more like Europe.
yeah, just in terms of our the desire for liberation, the desire for the change of the status quo,
Hmm.
that looks different for different people.
Yeah.
It's hard to just lump us all in one category because there's so many different expressions of life and types of people and communities and cultures in this country. So what it is uniting us is the desire for change, is the desire for a break from the status quo.
Hmm. And in those other countries, there are huge governmental shifts. Were they for the better?
You mean if the Pluto returns,
Uh
like in England and Spain?
huh.
I mean, I don't have the answer to that if it's for the better.
Yeah.
It's a long story, you know. It's not something that plays out instantly. But I mean, UK and Spain seem to be doing all right now.
Hmm. Yeah. England, I don't know about. I don't know that they ever came back from their high, to be honest. Their biggest moments, I'm not sure they made it
Yeah,
back. Yeah. Now,
correct.
so the country itself is going through this, but as you said, each state is different.
Hmm.
Did you ever look at the different states? In other words, said the 13 states came about at the same time,
Hmm.
but the Louisiana Purchase, or even Colorado. Colorado didn't become a state until what, 1870 or something like that. Now I'm going to get killed
Yeah.
on geography. In history, it's like, oh, crap. Yeah.
Yeah. I have not personally looked at the different states.
Mhm.
Sometimes you can look at cities. I mean, you can look at states because the states it's much easier to know the birth time,
Right.
date of a state.
Uh-huh.
I haven't so much looked into that um, in terms of what could potentially happen in terms of,
Yeah.
changes or secessions or whatever is being talked about as a potentiality. But um, there is kind of looking forward, there is one other big astrological piece that I see that, is kind of like 2025, 2026. I don't know if you want to go there yet, but that's other one big piece I want to bring into the conversation.
Yeah. Definitely bring it in because it's going to be here soon.
That's
Yeah.
I know.
And
I
that
you know,
that's the next vote, isn't it?
yeah, 26.
Yeah.
Yeah, the midterms. So, all right. We spoke about this the first time that we talked, which was
Mhm.
the Saturn Neptune conjunction.
Yeah.
Since then, when we spoke then, I hadn't really, you asked for some predictions for the years ahead, and I hadn't really gone so much into it,
Hmm.
in the way that I have had some time to do that now. And so there is this cycle with Saturn and Neptune coming together. Uh, um, and Saturn really is the archetype of structure, anything that's solid. It is real, it is definable, it is the box.
Hmm.
Okay, it is the box. It's our bones, it is like a wall. It's all of these solid, definable things. It's the limits, it's the outer bounds. Neptune, on the other hand, is everything that is non-definable. It is illusory, it is spiritual, it is not bound to the physical plane. It is very much an expansion and merging with the collective, which is totally not solid and physical. So you have these two
Opposites, is it?
very, yeah, very opposing forces and energies coming together at the exact same time. And this happens approximately every 36 years.
Mm.
Okay, Saturn and Neptune come together. And I bring this into the equation because they are going to be doing so, getting really, really close in 2025, and then in 2026, It's full on this energy. So 25 and 26, Saturn and Neptune are together. So in my estimation, this is going to be, as it seems like we're unfolding into uncharted territories in this country, and where are
Yeah.
things going, right? The Saturn Neptune piece is very much kind of what we're leading into. They're already right now in the same sign of Pisces. They're just not so close as they will be when they meet at the very beginning of the sign of Aries. So, for context, so bigger picture, Saturn's what's defined, what's real,
Hmm.
tangible, and Neptune is spiritual, what's undefined, and the collective consciousness of Source.
Yeah.
Let's say very spiritual.
The
When they
ethereal.
come together, it's a blurring. Yeah, when they get together, it's a blurring of what is defined, right? And
Hmm.
so I think that, AI and all the technologies and things that are coming and that are
Yeah.
here creates this like, what is real? What is a video? How do I know if I can trust this video
Yeah.
or this
Yeah.
person calling me that it's actually this person? And so many things in terms of like structures that we've relied on for a long time. You know, I mean, just to myself, like I have a Verizon phone,
Hmm.
and a couple times in the past couple weeks, like it just hasn't worked.
Oh yeah.
Just for a little bit,
I've
right?
got T-Mobile, and quite often it's almost like the internet is crumbling,
Yeah.
sometimes.
So then it's like, well, what happens if that just suddenly stops working?
I
You know?
know. I
What
know.
and how that would disrupt so much of society, right? So that is that kind of archetype, like the bleeding and dissolution of things that we thought were very, very solid.
Hmm.
But here is one very interesting thing to look at. So if you look at the historical cycles of Saturn and Neptune, the last time that they were together in the conjunction, we had a huge, huge turning point in the world. And I will especially point to the United States and the Soviet Union and the global world kind of ideologies and social structures. So the last time they were together was in Capricorn,
Hmm.
and that was 1989 to about 1991, which was the
Uh,
fall of the Berlin Wall, which
yeah.
was the fall of the Eastern Bloc and communism as a huge thing in the world,
Hmm.
and then ultimately the dissolution of the Soviet Union.
Yeah.
Um, and so there was a huge restructuring that happened there economically that shifted everything in Russia. But then if you go back to the previous time, which was 1952 to 1953,
Hmm.
you had the end of the Korean War,
Yeah.
and you had a huge kind of intensification of the nuclear arms race with the
Mm.
US and Soviet Union. That was also the death of Stalin,
Yeah.
and this like huge change in what was the empire there, let's say.
Hmm.
If we go back even more to the previous one, 1917, 1918, that was the end of World War I,
Yeah.
which was a collective restructuring of the balance of power in the world. That was the Russian Revolution, the Bolshevik Revolution, 1917. Um,
It was the Spanish flu. So
that's right.
that changed quite a bit of society in a way,
Yeah,
of
for
of
sure.
living on top of each other kind of thing.
Yeah. And so you could keep going back every time there's something crazy that happens, US and especially Russia. Like it's extremely predictable, right?
Hmm.
But part of this, weaving it all together, it's this kind of clash, let's say, of ideologies that we're also very much experiencing now that I believe is going to come more to a head, which is um, globalization and nationalism.
What does that mean? That we're going
Well,
to
there,
step out of globalization? I feel like the world's going on with or without us. Yeah.
yeah. Well, no, that's part of these kind of nationalist movements all over the world.
Hmm.
is kind of in response to the globalization and movement, let's say, and things that many people feel that, kind of like lost the integrity for their own people or populations. And so just what I see from an astrological standpoint is, again, another clash of these ideologies.
Hmm.
And I don't think it's going to be one or the other in terms of where we go,
Yeah.
but they're going to have to kind of duke it out a little bit more. And a big, part of this is so much is also going to have to do with immigration,
Hmm.
with migrants, with refugees. The most recent part of this Saturn Neptune cycle, we saw this huge, huge rise, from the Syrian war in migrants and refugees going into Europe.
Hmm.
But I think it's part of that is really woven into this dynamic. And if you just look at Saturn is like the structure, the archetype of a wall, of this is the boundary of this country. And
Right.
Neptune is like, what are you talking about? That doesn't exist. We're all one. We're all the same. We're all humans. We're here. How can you just arbitrarily create some boundary and call it a country,
Hmm.
whatever? So those are coming together, those two archetypes, to create a new 36-year cycle. So
I don't
again,
know if I want to go on this ride. Jeez.
yeah. So from a bigger perspective, the next couple of years, I would bet are going to be a little bumpy.
Hmm.
Okay, but then getting into 2027 and 2028, I think things will have integrated and played out enough that we start to go into a new direction. And it always, here in this country, at least politically, it seems to follow a very predictable cycles of the pendulum swinging back and forth and back and forth, right?
Right.
So for all that have totally lost faith in this country and politics and government leadership or whatever, like if you look at history,
Hmm.
it's things go in a pendulum, right? Um,
A
but
lot of
that,
times that's war, though.
yeah, well,
And that was the
so
other question I had.
let's
Yeah.
let's bring that in now.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
juicy, intense conversation. So another major cycle that plays out astrologically for the United States, and this is to a T, pretty much,
Hmm.
is the planet Uranus. When the planet Uranus enters into Gemini,
Hmm.
historically, it's always associated with a major war. Okay, so the first time was the Revolutionary War,
Hmm.
right? And I'm gonna just pull up the exact date so I have it um, here into Gemini. So, okay, 1776, that time period, we had the Revolutionary War. Well, the next time was in the late 1850s. Okay, is when it first entered. So during the Civil War, Uranus
Hmm.
was in Gemini. The next time was the 1940s, World War II. All
Right.
right. And so the reason that this kind of makes sense astrologically is
Yeah.
because Uranus in the United States' birth chart
Hmm.
is in the house that pertains to one-on-one relationships. Okay, it's how it relates to others. You could call that open enemies. You could call it, partnerships. It's the seventh house,
Hmm.
but it's basically, like the U.S. getting along with who.
Yeah.
And so, if history gives us any indication, Uranus is entering into Gemini in the not too distant future. It would be in July of 2025.
Mm.
Okay. Now, yeah, July 2025, and then it's in Gemini for quite a few years. It typically stays in a sign for about 7 years.
That's long.
Yeah. Yeah. So, um, is there a potential for major war, whether it's civil war, whether it's another, global conflict that, the US gets in that kind of reshapes things? Or if it's different than and not the traditional, kind of warfare that we've seen,
Hmm.
but maybe something more digital or technological or economic, or there's different possibilities. But
Right.
what I will say is we know another big shakeup is coming.
Hmm.
We do know that. I really personally hope it's not war. I hope a lot that it's
Right.
not
Right.
that. Am I going to be surprised if it is? No.
Yeah. But how sad that we're, as a human race, we're back there again. Again. I mean, can we get any more stupid? Oh my
Yeah, I
God.
agree. What is it going to take for us to not have wars?
It's
That's
got to
gonna be
be
a
a
good
lack
question.
of greed. It's got to be a lack of greed. That's what it seems like. You
My
know?
hope is my here's one hope,
Yeah.
um, that part of the Pluto and Aquarius shift that we're going into these next 18 years, I believe, is
Hmm.
going to be contact with extraterrestrials. I think there's a very good chance. I mean, it's happening in the Senate. Things are coming out more and more
But
in
yeah,
the public
finally
sector.
they're coming. And why are they starting now to come clean after all this time of
That's a
denial? You know?
that's a great question. That's a very good question. I don't know,
Mm,
but I would suspect it's one reached a tipping point, but also two, it's a preparation. It's like the light preparation before the bigger thing.
yeah.
And so but I would imagine that, once that happens,
Hmm.
contact, and we as a whole species here on this planet realize together at the same time we're not alone.
Yeah.
Hopefully that's a unifying thing. I don't have so much hope that it's gonna play out so quickly, like we're not, some of these sci-fi movies where everyone they're just shooting things at the spacecraft and it doesn't
Yeah,
work, and it's
right.
like, what are you doing? Don't shoot
Yeah,
it.
yeah, yeah. I can see it going there.
Right.
Getting the
But
slingshot out.
it'll be another, I would expect, um, the US, but the whole world, to have another 2025, 2026, especially 2026, another kind of shock, like electric, defibrillator shock moment,
Mhm.
like we had in 2020
Right.
with the pandemic, which was like a WTF, what's happened? Oh my God,
Hmm.
and reset. And in many ways, we have just adapted with this greater stress and, kind of went back to some things as normal, though it's not. But it wasn't, we as a collective didn't use the full opportunity that it was for us to reset our systems and structures and way that we do things with each other. We still see the greediness that you're talking about. And
Right. Actually,
so,
I think it accelerated. I think what benefits we had, we lost. It accelerated.
yeah, no, I think on the geopolitical stage and the
Hmm.
money and the big economics in the world and all that, I think you're right. It was a huge transfer of wealth,
Right.
more into the 1% of the 1%.
Hmm.
But also, at the same time, there was a huge awakening that happened. So many people got turned on spiritually as a
Yeah.
result of the pandemic.
Yeah.
But
But
my point is,
did it
2020,
hold?
well, I think these things probably take time.
Mm,
It's not something that changes suddenly overnight. But in 2025 and especially 2026, I think we are heading for another similar thing that is
yeah.
going to be like wake us up out of our slumber as a collective, which will give us another opportunity to kind of like really reset the paradigm.
Hmm. Is it going to be to the benefit of the people, the citizens of the United States? Can you tell that from astrology?
Um, Again, it depends. It depends on who you ask.
Mm.
Which people are you talking about? Because we got, 350 plus million people here.
Right.
I think, you know, uh, there's a difference in the short term and the long term. I think
Hmm.
in the long term, there is a collective evolution, there is a collective transformation that's happening. And I think part of the, results of this election that we've just had and that's how I like to think about it. It is part of that collective mirror, and
Hmm.
the work that still needs to be done, a bit of the shadow work and a bit of the, um, really kind of seeing where we're at and what work we need to do spiritually. So in the long run, yes, I believe that 2025, 2026. In the short run, it could be probably a little chaotic or very chaotic.
Right. And when you say the long run, how long is the long run? Is that 25, 26, or is that 18 years
Or more.
or more? Oh,
18 years, 50 years, 100 years. But yeah, 20 years, 15, 20 years.
we were just, this is my opinion, in humanity, we
Uh-huh.
were just in the richest, safest period in human history. For all of our bitching, we really were. The majority of the world were well fed, were well housed, were, and safe, during, I'd say, the last 50, 60, 70 years, the majority of the world. And human beings aren't real good at this. you know? So, that's when I'm
Well,
saying, are we going to come out okay? That's what I want, back to safety and abundance, really, for the majority of people.
yeah, I don't know that the majority of the world was really well fed over the past 50, 60 years. Definitely the majority of the developed, what we call developed world. But I mean, in Africa, many places in South America, India, a lot of like there's so much poverty,
Hmm.
and people really fighting for the meagerness of their meals, let alone for that, here in this country. So I think it's hard like it's easy to say that from our perspective,
Yeah.
and where we are in this country and like all the access that we have. But I don't know that that's been the case like for most people.
Hmm.
We just don't
I'm
see it much.
I'm comparing it to other periods in US, not US, in the world history and human history.
Yeah.
Yeah. And in human
Yeah, no, I
history,
mean,
you know,
yeah.
I mean, let's be honest, if I'm living up north, I could never get a piece of citrus fruit. I
Yeah.
would never see it. You know, um, in India and in Bangladesh and in some of these places, um, I believe there was food gotten in there, and I could be very wrong with this, that not one drop would have gotten there, and maybe a few drops did.
Hmm.
So, and again, I could be very naive about the whole thing. But if you go back 100, 150 years, there
Oh
there
yeah.
was no sharing of anything.
No, I totally agree that we have been, here, especially in the Western world, at the most prosperous time in history.
Hmm. Yeah.
Um, and I don't think we're suddenly going to go back to some dark age. I don't think that at all. Um, I think that it may take a few years to really work ourselves into the new kind of what it's going to be.
Hmm.
But with the technologies that are evolving, I really think there are enough very wealthy, very powerful people that actually have very good intentions, and just the resourcefulness of communities and humans to support each other, that we're we'll be all right.
Hmm.
I think
How
that's
about,
part of the Pluto and Aquarius is coming back to that.
and when is that? When is that one? Is that
It's right now. It's the
yeah,
next 18 years. I think it's part of it is returning back to some sense of community,
that?
you
Well,
know,
that would be
and
good.
like, yeah,
So,
it's,
what
that's
about the
good.
world, though? So, we talked mostly about the United States. What about the world? Can you see, is there a birth time that you can use astrologically or
For the world.
yeah. I know.
If you find that, Barb,
Yeah,
please let me
yeah,
know. I would
yeah.
love to look at that.
Wouldn't that be
You know,
something?
there is a chart that a lot of people use with 0 degrees Cancer rising called the Thema Mundi chart for the world.
Hmm.
And actually, this Neptune Saturn conjunction is happening on what is considered a world point, the 0 degree Aries point, which is the spring equinox point. Um, that being said, one of the predictions that I definitely see happening again is some major shift in what's happening in with Russia,
Hmm.
and its leadership, its influence in the world, just in the same way, like these patterns, every time it's
Right.
just like clockwork. There's some huge shift, and that goes with U.S. versus Russia, the relationships, the geopolitical like play out of the game of risk,
Hmm.
um, and also the collective ideological focus in terms of what's the best economic model to have, what's the best governmental models to have, etc.
Yeah. And what is their astrological future? Is it?
Russia,
Yeah.
change for sure.
Hmm.
Every time Saturn and Neptune come together, it's a huge reset for them. So that's coming in the next couple of years, I do believe.
Hmm.
And
And
and typically, if I understand correctly, how it typically plays out is very quickly, like in a matter of days.
oh, really? Yeah. That's how Russia does it.
That's how Russia does it. I don't know. That's how
Yeah.
every country does it.
Yeah. Wow. And when does that look like it's happening?
Next 2 years,
Hmm.
especially 2026.
Okay. 2026 is the big one. So, in other words, be where you want to be in 2026. Yeah.
Yeah,
And how about China?
China. I haven't looked so deeply into the astrology of China. There's a couple different charts for the country of China, let's say, or the
Hmm.
People's Republic of China. So I don't know so much
Yeah.
to speak intelligently about China right now.
Yeah. Okay. Now, how about Donald Trump? Have you done his chart?
Of course.
Yeah.
So Donald Trump, let me just pull up his chart right now. So one of the interesting things of note, I don't know if we spoke about the first assassination attempt and what was happening in the sign of Taurus around that time. But one of the biggest things is he's a Gemini.
Hmm.
And right now, and for the past, many months, the planet Jupiter has been moving through the sign of Gemini. And Jupiter is a planet of good luck, good fortune, expansion, growth. Um, and so he has, I think, in many ways, really been given a boost by the planet Jupiter
Hmm.
during this particular cycle.
What is his
Uh,
birthday? Sorry.
yeah, Donald Trump was born on June 14th, 1946,
Hmm.
Queens, New York, 10:54 a.m.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So it has been a very lucky period for him.
Yeah, I mean, he
Amazingly
also has
lucky.
been shot at and
Yeah.
had a few
But
assassination attempts. So.
yeah, yeah. But the fact that he got by with them are amazingly lucky.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, no, the good fortune of Jupiter has been with him.
Hmm. And what's
for sure.
coming up for him?
What's coming up for him? Um, let's see. So one of the interesting things I think will be a big test on him and his power will be when Saturn, the planet that really brings pressure and limitation and definition, when Saturn squares his sun, which is really taking place in March of 2025. And square, it just means a relationship between Saturn and his sun in Gemini. And so that's like a major test. That's like the kind of you do all the practice, you do all the talking, you do all this stuff, and like there's a major kind of put your money where your mouth is in terms of what's going to happen for
Right.
him. Very much late February and March.
Hmm.
So that and I think that could be an economic thing. That could be from um, there could be some more kind of secrets or things that come out, whether him, whether people around him.
Yeah.
He seems to do well with scandals, you know.
I was going to say it doesn't matter though.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter.
But there'll be a big test around that time.
Hmm. Yeah. I don't know that it matters. Somehow he walks away from a mall.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And here's actually an interesting astrological tidbit about Trump. And so I learned a very specific technique actually from a wonderful astrologer named Demetra George, which is how to analyze how you do when you're battling someone in a fight,
Hmm.
and whether that's like a fist fight or whether that's a lawsuit, whether that's a competition, whether that's running for office, right? Like it's a one-on-one thing.
Hmm.
And what you do is you look at the first house versus the 12th house. The first house being yourself, and the 12th house being hidden enemies or enemies, right? And self-undoing or defeat.
Hmm.
So if you look at that within his chart, he has unbelievably powerful dynamics going on that
Yeah.
indicate when he goes toe to toe with somebody, 9 times out of 10, maybe 99 or 95 times out of 100, he wins. It's not universal, it's not
Mhm.
100%, but he is so strong, and I think that's one of the astrological reflections of why like he just seems to get away with stuff. It's like
He
how is
gets
that
away with
possible?
everything, with
Yeah.
everything. I mean, he said it himself. He could shoot somebody, point blank on Fifth Ave and not lose a voter.
Mhm. Yeah.
So yeah, he gets away with everything. I mean, he's a convicted felon that will never be prosecuted, you
Mhm.
know, and that's, the few things that they could bring into court. Most of them were
Mhm.
bribing, New York and Florida, and who wants to go into court and say, yeah, we were the other side of it, so that's part of it. But
Right.
he looks like that luck is going to continue for years or forever
Um,
or
no, no, no. Jupiter leaves Gemini um in June of 2025.
Hmm.
So
How's
he's
it
got it
look
for the
in
first half.
2026 around November?
For him,
Yeah.
specifically for him, let's see. If we go to November of 2026, and then there's one final note I do want to mention actually
Mm.
that I wanted to bring up. So in Wow, he's getting up there in age. He's reaching his Uranus return,
Exactly.
which takes people 84 years to get to. It's an elite club to get to your Uranus return. And
Yeah.
he's starting that when Uranus goes into Gemini.
Hmm.
Um anyways, so Jupiter goes into his first house. That's a pretty strong energy of fortune in his favor and feeling good and strong. However, the south node, which kind of takes and depletes energy, will also be in the same place, which is a point in the opposite direction. Okay.
Hmm.
Saturn will be in, he will definitely feel some tightening of Saturn during this time, which could be legally, which could be again another big kind of it's another big stress test during this time, especially with his allies, who his people are. Yeah, I would not be surprised at all if there was a bit of things not going his way during that time.
During the 26th
26th,
November?
November 26th,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Did you ever look at Kamala Harris?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, how'd she look?
You know,
I
here's what's good.
I am amazed that most psychics predicted her win. Well, most pollsters did too, but I'm more impressed with the psychics.
Yeah.
And yet then she didn't. Like when I looked at her, I saw a win, but I never saw her. And you're the one that brought this up to me, that to look at taking the oath of office, on inauguration, and I never saw it, but I saw her win.
Hmm.
So, and I couldn't understand that. I couldn't understand that, you know.
Yeah. I mean, I think so many people, and you know this better, better than anyone when it comes to psychic predictions or things like that.
Mhm.
When we're really emotionally invested in something, we really
Exactly.
want
Not,
something to be a certain way.
yeah, not neutral enough. Yeah.
As a psychic, that can start to bleed in.
Hmm. Yeah.
So I think that happened with a lot of people.
Right. And well, that's a big problem is staying neutral to get the
Yeah.
neutral information. Yeah. But
Yeah,
I
which is why
haven't
I think,
ever seen that many go, the other direction, the
yeah,
wrong direction.
yeah,
But yeah. As
yeah.
if the energy was for her, but then didn't. But what did her chart say? Bad day
Well,
in November 5th.
yeah, let me go back exactly to November 5th. So on November 5th, you had Uranus exactly on the ruler of her career line. And so Uranus again is that lightning strike of sudden change,
Hmm.
which
Could have
ended up
gone
in
either
her
way.
direction. Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, depending on how things went, bigger picture, but in how things shook out, that was a huge disappointment and a huge like her career going this way, and now it's completely going this way.
Right. Right.
Right? So the unpredictability factor. But that was also exactly on a major point in Donald Trump's chart. Uranus was in the mix, all of this.
Oh, really? Yeah.
Yeah. Is that unexpected, sudden change goes like this. Boom,
Hmm.
boom.
Yeah. And both of them had it on the same day.
Hmm.
Oh, that is
Now,
weird.
one of the other, because we did a whole talk here in person in Richmond, at the Aquarian about also Robert F. Kennedy Jr.'s
Yeah.
chart.
Yeah.
This was when he was still running to be the president.
Hmm.
Here's something that's very, 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 very interesting
Yeah.
astrologically. And that is that for the past 2 years, especially, the United States has also been having its Chiron return. Now, Chiron is an asteroid which refers to a centaur in Greek mythology, half man, half horse,
Hmm.
who was known as the hero's teacher, the guide, the mentor for all of the demigods, Achilles and Hercules and Jason and these figures, and taught them how to heal themselves, how to read omens and signs, astrology, how to fight, how to be a warrior, martial art, like all these kinds of
Hmm.
things that a hero needs to know.
Yeah.
Um, but in a country's chart, in a mundane way, Chiron represents everything health related,
Hmm.
healing, health, and also spiritual healing. So the United States is exactly in its Chiron return, and this was also eclipsed in April. The total solar eclipse in April was exactly aligned with Chiron in the sky and the Chiron of the United States' chart. So one of the very fascinating things that we found during when we were looking at the different presidential candidates is that Chiron in the sky right now is exactly on the place in Robert F. Kennedy Jr.'s chart that rules his career and public reputation.
Is that a good thing or a bad thing?
I mean, for any given person, it's I wouldn't say it's either good or bad. It's a time where that archetype would be very prominent in someone's life and work.
Mhm.
But now he is, assuming things go according to plan, let's say, he will be the Secretary of Health,
Right.
and which would bring a huge shift to the larger ideology of health, from the governmental perspective for this country. But
Yeah.
what's fascinating is how that asteroid is exactly on the place that rules his reputation and career. And
Hmm.
suddenly he's in this huge position of power, where he is, you know, focusing on health and
Yeah.
wellness, and the whole slogan to make America healthy again, right? That's his whole slogan since he, joined the Trump camp.
And then he sat
And
down and ate McDonald's and drank a Coca-Cola.
yeah, that's right.
Talk about the loyalty test.
Yeah, pose for this picture.
Yeah.
Y- Yeah, so, but from an astrological perspective, I mean, it's perfect symbolism.
Hmm. Wow. Ah. As I said, I don't want to go on this ride. I prefer it, years ago. Let me go back to the 90s. The new 60s, what they were saying. Yeah, it's the new 60s.
Of the new 60s.
Yeah, the
I like that.
1990s was
I
the
mean,
new
listen,
60s.
the pandemic, I think, did create a lot of beautiful things. It did create a beautiful spiritual awakening for.
Oh, I lost you. Ah, I'm going to wait and see if you come back in.
Your call has been forwarded to an automated voice message.
Hey, you there? I thought I brought you back in, but then it didn't happen. I don't know if you can hear me or not. Nick, you back?
I'm back.
Wow, you're sideways.
Oh, am I sideways? Hold on. Let's see if this
Yeah.
fits.
Oh, here we go. Good. I'm thinking, I might have to put a seatbelt on for that. Yeah, great. I know.
Yeah,
Wow.
sorry about
You
that.
were
Hold
you were
on.
right in the middle of the pandemic has brought us, and boom, you were gone.
So, yeah, to start to land the plane here, I think that despite all the tragedies of the pandemic and the chaos and the, some of the structural things that you said that really kind of like have not gone in the way that many of us would like.
Mm-hmm.
A beautiful thing really, really was sparked. A fire was lit in terms of um, a spiritual awakening in many, many, many people. And so I believe the fruits of that are
Mhm.
very much yet to come.
Yeah.
So I definitely have hope for this country, but the world, and I don't have any kind of glossy, naive glasses about it that it's all just gonna be great. I think it is gonna get bumpier before it gets better,
Mm-hmm.
but I think it is going in that direction of evolution. Um, and so what's important is for each of us as conscious beings or as spiritual practitioners is having the ability to navigate uncertainty and change and being able to adapt and being able to not get sucked in
Mm-hmm.
to chaos, where it takes you off balance and you're not able to contribute to your family or your community or to the world.
You have more hope than I do.
That's okay. I'm
Yeah.
okay with that.
Because I've seen again, I work in a metaphysical store and I've seen the influx of people coming in. So because you're with John in his metaphysical store.
Yeah, the aquarium.
And
Yeah.
yeah, and the last 4 years has been an economic boon for a metaphysical store. And a lot of people turned to magic.
Hmm.
They came in with, and a lot of people are walking away from it right now. It's like, okay, we got through that. Yeah. You know?
Yes. I mean, there was also a huge boom when people were getting checks from the government. That was when we
That's true
really
too.
noticed.
Yeah, that's true
That
too.
was when
That
everybody was
helped quite a
coming in.
bit. Yeah. And they
That
couldn't
helped.
go out and spend it on anything else.
Yeah, no, they all came in and bought crystals and things.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, that's for sure. But I do believe that there are enough people that are real leaders that have kind of heard the call,
Mhm.
to kind of step forward in creating a new paradigm or in a new vision of the world.
Yeah.
And I think part of actually some of the beautiful things with social media and Instagram and YouTube and maybe TikTok and these kinds of things is the creator economy
Hmm.
that allows people the freedom to make a living and do some of these things that perhaps otherwise wasn't so available.
Right.
And I think because of that, it is ushering in a new collective worldview.
Mhm.
And which I think is one that's um, more on team life and wanting to figure things out as a collective
Mhm.
than wanting to go back to caveman times, let's say.
Yeah. When social media first started, I was all excited thinking, we're going to be able to talk to each other instead of leaving it to the leaders only and whatever they're willing to tell us and whatever show they're putting on, what they're doing and what they're telling us are two different things. Well, now we can talk to each other. And basically, the average person does not want war. The average person just wants a plain, normal life, know, a pretty
By far.
easy, pretty comfortable life, and does not want to take over other countries and, all just wants their little life. But I
Yeah.
don't see it anymore. I just, I don't see people talking to each other. In fact, they're talking less to each other. And there's so much out there that you don't know what's true. Now
Mhm.
we're watching people talk, and it might not be them at all. and it might not, they may never have been there or said that, or, you know, it's being taken away. The possibilities, you know, are being taken away, which is too
Mhm.
bad. Because I thought that was our salvation. When the average person talked to the average person, we weren't going to have what these governments created. We were going to have something.
Yeah. I don't know that it's being taken away. It's just fine. It's just in an evolutionary moment of adjustment,
Mm,
right? Like I think new technologies will come, you know, and anytime there's a new technology, there's a year or two of figuring it out. Like how, you know, how's this going to work? How do we know what to do with this, right?
right.
And so, like you're saying, with the voices or the videos and what can you trust, that's part of the astrology transit. But there's also like humans are smart. We'll find a way to adapt to it. We will find a way to, you know, I don't see it just as some bleak, like, oh, that's a problem. That sucks. Guess we're not going to figure that out. Like,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like,
Hmm.
we'll figure it out. I think also in the same respect, like, yes, you're absolutely right. There has never been probably such a loneliness and isolation
Hmm.
and mental health epidemic as we have
Right.
now that
Right.
was spawned by the pandemic.
Well, not only
Um,
that, but kids don't know how to talk to each other. They
oh
only
my
know
gosh.
how to go through so they don't have anything to go back to. They have
Yeah.
no understanding or knowledge of sitting down and talking face to face. It's just something that's never been in their life, in their consciousness, you know.
That's
So
the freakiest thing of all. That's
it
the
is.
scariest.
Yeah,
I
because
do
we
think
are
though,
herd animals, you know.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And this is something I'm so fascinated in. I want to do a larger, actually, astrological study with the cycles of this with
Hmm.
social media, the internet, and the kind of evolution of what Dr. Jonathan Haidt, I think, refers to from play-based childhood to screen-based childhood.
Uh-huh.
And he does these studies on you know, the social condition and children and how these screens affect them.
Yeah.
And we are really, I believe, starting to see the beginning of this kind of revolution against screens with parenting. Not, it's still the universal
Hmm.
kind of way of doing it because here's a pacifier, like I can't deal with you, take the screen, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And the kid
But
wants that. At 6 months
oh,
old, the kid's
it's like
reaching for the
crack,
screen. Yeah.
of course. But that's a condition, you know, that's a choice. Maybe a very difficult choice for a parent at this point, but it's still absolutely a choice. And there you are seeing pushback, and I notice it in my circles, but also in, you know, you can find a lot of articles out there and people like real, you know, more and more of these homeschooling or you know, educating in different ways and realizing, oh, maybe this is like really damaging to children's
Right. Right.
psychological development. So I think the anti-wave is starting to build and will continue to build.
Hmm.
That doesn't stop the tidal wave of the problem that is already it's too late, you know, about. Um, but
See,
the
we
other,
might
you know,
become
sorry
more
for that.
comfortable with it, but we're never going to reverse it. The world is going on. No matter who steps out, it's still moving forward. Then it's going to be AI. Then it's going to be, you know, it just, I do, you know, I mean, the schools, when they said we're not going to have any cell phones in the schools, it's the parents that go crazy. You
Yeah, how
know,
am I going to reach my kid?
I know, I know. So I don't, again, you have more hope than I have, I think. But I think also
Well,
it's moving so quickly um, that we don't have, I mean, as you said, humans are so adaptable. That's why we've made it this long in evolution, because we are the most adaptable species, and we will adapt. But I think it's ahead of us. I think things are going so fast. We're worried about screens on a iPhone. This is almost
mhm,
1990s in the world where we're at now. We just don't know it. You know?
yeah.
You know?
Well, if you again, if you, I mean, what you're just saying, like if we zoom out to a oh, hello. If we zoom out to the collective of the human species
Hmm.
versus individuals and you and me and the people that we know, like it's different when we talk about the survival and the evolution of the species. If we zoom out
Right.
of the species, I think humans will be all right.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know? So,
But it is weird that we can
yeah.
talk to
But I,
people all over the world, and yet we are very lonely. We just don't know how to make it work yet, or make it.
yeah.
There's
Well, you,
something about
ah,
physically in front of each other that makes a difference.
oh, for sure. And what I was
Yeah,
going to say is you just ask Chat GPT how to figure it out.
I
And Chat
know.
GPT will spit out the
And
answer
I'm
of how to
calling that
do it.
artificial incompetence because,
Yeah.
they're bringing words to life that nobody uses. But the minute I see them, I know, oh, that was AI. Delve is a perfect word. Delve.
Yeah.
Nobody had used that word. Now it's starting in because AI always had delve in their rewrites.
Uh-huh.
We're going to
Interesting.
delve into.
I'm not
I
going to be
know.
able to not see that now, Barb.
Yeah. You're going to see it everywhere. Now humans are starting to use it because we see it so much. There were about two or three other words that came up that I thought, oh, that's an AI word. Yeah. Humans don't normally use that word. But yeah, you'll see it. You'll see it. Anyway, I should let you go. Thanks so much for being on, for going through all of this. I prefer your worldview to mine. I know.
Come on in.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So if I've got it
It's a
right,
view through the veil.
it is. Yeah, and I want to close the veil at the moment. um, but right now you're looking like bumpy until uh, fall or winter 2026 and then starting to even out.
Yeah, when we get to 2027, things will, I believe, will kind of start to really take new shape
Mm,
and we'll be integrating. We are in the catharsis stage.
right.
And then 2027, we go into the integration stage.
Hmm.
Yeah.
I hope I like that world.
Well, then be a part of helping create it.
Hmm.
I think you're doing great
Yeah,
work. So
yeah.
you keep creating conscious conversations, then I believe we're all helping to create the world as it will become.
Hmm. I hope so. I hope I hope it's a friendly community. It's a kind community. I hope we can come back from meanness. Yeah.
I will
So,
double down on that. So be it.
right, right. Well, thanks so much for being on. I've loved it. I love talking to you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. It was
Yeah.
it's been really wonderful. And I just want to acknowledge, in case anybody is curious, I do offer one-on-one astrology consultations.
Hmm.
If you go to my website, you can find I also teach astrology online. And actually, I'm about to launch a big tarot certification course.
Okay,
So if
before
anybody
you go
wants,
anywhere, give your website.
okay, I will.
Yeah.
It's nicklasky.com, NICKLASKY .com. And starting at the very beginning of February, we are jumping back in again with Tarot Tuesdays
Oh,
and
good.
doing a full semester tarot certification course. So those
Oh,
are the
good.
events that I got coming up. Yeah.
And we didn't talk on the show about you've just come back from Greece where you had
Oh
a
yeah.
retreat with a group of people and you're going to do another one, I think. You
Yes,
say,
in
yeah,
March.
in
Yeah.
March. Oh, nice. Yeah. And tell me a little bit about your retreats.
So they are really like sacred metaphysical tours.
Hmm.
We most of the time we spend in Delphi, Greece, which is where the ancient oracle was. I mean, it's the most for those of y'all that are sensitive to energies, it's such a power spot on the world. But so it's got such a rich legacy and history and mythology. We go to the temples, the sacred sites. I lead some shamanic journeys to connect with some of the deities. There's always channeling sessions or kind of teachings. We do meditations. The food is the best food in the world, in my opinion.
Back to the physical.
Yeah, ground us
Yeah.
right back down.
Yeah.
So it's a huge, it's a full game, very full days,
Mhm.
and evenings of just kind of like magic. So
Yeah, that sounds great. That sounds great. So everybody go to your website. You've got so much coming up and going on. And the one-on-one, we
yeah, if
all
you're
want to
curious
know.
about that, send me an email. Oh, go ahead, say that again.
No, we all want to know what's happening with us, what's happening in the world, and how to, and with the
Yeah.
tarot, how to do it yourself in a way. Do you teach astrology? No?
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
Yes. You can find, I have a few like astrology level 1 and level 2 up on my website right now.
Mm-hmm.
And quite a few very specialty subjects, like more intermediate and advanced classes
Yeah.
that you can access on my website.
Great. That's good. Okay. Thanks. Everybody go to the website and take a look. Thanks for being on, Nick. I really
Yeah,
appreciate
thank
it.
you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Val.
Love your analysis.
Beautiful.
Take
All
care.
right. Well, have a blessed week. Okay. Talk to you
Thank you.
later.
You too. Bye-bye.